incrementary things. Let's continue the Supermemo course, the Pleasurable expansion. Now we are working with the element parameters, and now it's time for the A factor. I will not start with that, but Fowl did is the first thing he mentions. So let's dig into that.
So your intervals get factor is the you can see the A factor. The A factor is the factor that your intervals get multiplied by.
By the way, did you see the hint? Elements A factor. Oh wow, thank you. I didn't reach to that conclusion. That is a useless description, and just includes the entire this URL that you see that you cannot click, by the way. But instead of clicking the link, let me go to my collection. Oh, what's the A factor? And I have A. See Supermemo Guru for definitions. So, in Supermemo 19, they updated the hint that you get. Yeah, check Guru for definitions. Okay. So what I can do, F1. It's Supermemo help, by the way, not the Guru. But then I can go to A factor, and here you go. And remember, what we have seen at the start of this course, there are multiple wikis and websites of Supermemo. It's chaotic, and precisely Guru, it's mixed with Supermemo and the philosophy behind Supermemo. Self-directed learning, the school system, and so on. So what I could do, Supermemo Guru, A factor. More or less number associated with every element in a collection. Stands for absolute difficulty factor. You can see it's not the same definition already. So first, I have multiple definitions of A factor. Because it's one thing, but then depending on the element type, if it's an item or topic and tasks, is a different thing. On top of that, I have another website that also differentiates items from topics, but they are not the same words. Oh my God. Look at the time it was written last time, 2019. And this one, 2023. So just based on the date, I will prioritize Supermemo Guru, and happens to be consistent with the hint. Now it says Guru, unlike Fowl video, that is oh my God, it's yet another domain. Supermemo.com, help and G. Supermemo, let me actually check it. Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore. So at least we know that the hint was renamed because the link is actually dead. Okay, good to know. Now let's start defining what A factor is. It's a property of an element. We know that because we have the element parameters window. So it's a parameter or a property. It can be topics, as we have seen, tasks, items. What about concepts? It's not there, right? Concepts don't have A factor. Well, by default, in Supermemo, when you have a concept and when you create concepts from the registry, remember that you can create them here, create the concepts dismissed already. If an element is dismissed, let's go to math. What's the A factor here? 1.2. It's a concept, it's dismissed, but this is what is the default value. So if there's no information that can be inherited depending on what you do in incremental reading, or how in the context it is created or whatever, I don't have any reference, 1.2 will be the default for topic, for everything that is not an item, basically. It's passive review, 1.2. What about this? My root element is not dismissed, right? It's a topic, it's a concept that is not dismissed. It's number 6, but yeah, perhaps I added this manually, I don't know. Because, spoiler alert, you can do it manually. And now, it keeps 1.2. The user has full control in Supermemo. I can overwrite everything, the A factor. Okay, so now let's tackle the definition. Then the A factor, again, the description is different from the website, the Guru and the Supermemo help. The 19, by the way, the last one, the latest one. On top of that, they are different. And even on top of that, depends on the version of Supermemo. Oh my God. So before, it was the item difficulty. But we already know that. We already covered that for items, if we go to the element parameters window, we have the difficulty, right? And it is only for items. But hey, the A factor is one of the parameters used to calculate the overall difficulty. I'm not following. Then what is an A factor? So before, it was the same as difficulty. Not anymore. Modern versions of Supermemo, the A factor is the number associated with every element in the collection. Yes, it's an element parameter. We know that already. A factor helps determine how much intervals increase in the learning process. If you are familiar with Anki, it's the ease attribute, which by default in Anki it's 2.5, or at least before FSRS was introduced, it was 2.5. So that means that if the interval today it's 10 days, multiply this by 2.5 because it's the ease, and the next interval will be 25 days. That I have 25, I succeeded that, multiply this by 2.5, and repeat this over and over again. So that means that in Supermemo, if I had, let me check in this case, 3.6, it will be multiplied. So if it's 90 days, will be 90 days, it will be 3.6 times 90 days. If it was the old SM2 algorithm. It's not as simple as that anymore. And what that means, that the higher the A factor, the faster the interval increase. Yes, it's not the same to multiply by 2.5 than 3.5. The interval will be higher, the next interval will be longer, and therefore the intervals will increase with fewer repetitions. You can see the factors in the element data window. Yes. Remember what is the element data window? This one. And where it is. Dun, dun, dun. Let me change the layout for convenience. So here it is. In the difficulty tab. Hey, why difficulty tab? Because the A factor is related to difficulty. I have the A factor, 3.656, which by the way is the same that I see here. And I can add it. Then nope, you will be 2.5. And I say no, you will be 3.656. Nice. So if you want, you can see it at all times. Let's continue. Then, for items is what we described, corresponds to item difficulty. In most cases, the higher the A factor, the easier the item. Yes, you need less repetitions to keep it in your long-term memory, therefore it's easier to remember. Most difficult items usually have A factors equal to 1.2, which happens to be the default for topics. Then the A factor is defined as the quotient of the second optimum interval and the first optimum interval. Yeah, without the jargon. I have what is considered the best first interval, and the second. So the second, how many times is larger against the first? If my first is 10 days, and my next is 30, means it's 3 times as big. So the A factor will be 3. Then, for topic and tasks, and spoiler alert, concepts that are not dismissed as well, everything that is not an item, therefore it's passive review, modulate topic priority by affecting the frequency of exposition. The higher the priority, the more often you will see those, because the intervals will grow slower. Why? Because as a result, they will have a lower A factor. For topics and tasks, A factor is interpreted as the number in which the current interval should be multiplied to get the next value, the next interval, basically. So what we described in Anki, the easiness is the E factor. Happens to be the same letter. Ease. Nice. Then I will go to my go quickly to my stats. We will cover this at the very end of the course. Here I have distributions of the A factor. And I can distinguish items only or topics. Topics include tasks as well. And you see that most of my elements have 3.9. And then by design, 1.2 is the minimum. Then why in Supermemo documentation said that the hardest items will have 1.2? Because it's the minimum by design. If it's the minimum, means it's the hardest difficulty, the worst performance. And again, it's capped by design to a maximum of 6.9. So that means if the current interval is 10 days, the next interval would be 69 already, almost sevenfold, which is quite massive. Why is capped by 1.2? Because in Supermemo, well, in space repetition, intervals always grow. It's a principle. The difference is that the rate of how quickly they grow. If it's something harder for you to recall, to keep in your long-term memory, you'll see this more often, but still in increasing intervals, because you are not cramming. So this is the A factor. You can customize this for topics and for items. Usually that is a thing for topics. Let me quickly filter some. For topics, by the way, it's limited to just 101. So it only increases 1%. Usually has no effect because the decimals are always rounded. So what we tend to do is that if the A factor is increasing the interval, it grows and grows. Then I see this article in 3 weeks, almost a month, 4 months, half a year. This is growing too quick for a topic. You will want to reset the interval. But if you reset the interval to tomorrow, the A factor is already huge, and it will happen the same thing, but even crazier. That's why in some cases like that, you may want to reset the A factor. But this is advanced, no worries about now. So remember, if you come from Anki, the A factor is like the old E factor, the isness factor, how difficult it is or how easy it is, will affect the calculations of the next intervals, even if it's passive or active recall, topics, tasks, or items. And then priorities also take this into account. There are more factors in the equation. It's not the entire thing. But just the point of this video, at the point of this course, is to let you know that every single element has an A factor, and the higher the A factor, the fewer repetitions you will do. Or the lower the A factor, the slower the intervals will increase. And this number is affected by the time of the repetition, some of the features that involve repetitions, or manually you just overrule that. It's not static necessarily. That's for now all you need to know about the A factor. See you in the next video.